and Ranking Member for holding this hearing today. I appreciate your shining a light on our nation's unacceptably high maternal mortality rate and advocating for upholding the sanctity of life. As you know, the CDC defines maternal mortality as the death of a woman while pregnant or within 1 year of the end of pregnancy. The irony is not lost on me that while my Democrat colleagues sit here today to talk about protecting the life of mothers, we cannot forget that mothers are indeed the bearers of life. And so we must protect the sanctity of life in its entirety. Unfortunately, many of my Democrat colleagues have not committed to upholding life at all stages, as their leadership continues to block the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Bill, as well as repeated requests from the Republican side of the aisle to ensure taxpayer dollars do not fund abortion providers such as Planned Parenthood. And so I want to take a second to reflect on that latter point, as it is critical that we work to ensure all communities have access to quality health care, including maternal health care. The bottom line is that Planned Parenthood and other abortion providers do not have any regard for the sanctity of life, and so by no means provide quality health care. In fact, their founder advocated for the exact opposite of life. It sickens me that the government continues to funnel tax monies to Planned Parenthood and abortion providers that claim to provide quality care to expectant mothers in several of our communities, including those that need it most, but fail to do so. While the facts show that Black communities are reeling from high rates of maternal mortality, rural communities such as my district in North Georgia, Georgia's 9th, are also struggling. Just as the COVID-19 does not know racial boundaries, maternal mortality rates at large do not either. And so I do not believe my constituents should be left out of today's conversation just because they do not fit into the racial lens of today's hearing. In fact, Georgia is in the top 10 of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country, with 48.8 per 100,000 deaths. In 2019, the Georgia House of Representatives formed a study committee on maternal mortality and reviewed 3 years of maternal death rates in the state. They found that 60% of deaths were preventable. Furthermore, it was found that rural women have a much higher maternal mortality rate than do urban women. While white women in rural areas have a 50% higher maternal mortality rate than white women in urban areas, and Black women in rural areas have a 30% higher mortality rate than their urban counterparts. To reduce these unnecessary deaths, the state of Georgia created the Perinatal Quality Collaborative, which has been implemented. Several of the initiatives put together by the Alliance for Innovative in Maternal Health. Specifically, it sets forth the best practices for maternal care and provides recommendations for hospitals, protocols, policies, and a system of date tracking. Over 60 Georgia hospitals participate in these maternal health initiatives, touching 87% of all births in Georgia to date. While ensuring quality maternal health care remains a top issue nationally, along with protecting against maternal mortality, I want to take this opportunity to commend my state leaders and officials for taking steps to protect the life across all communities in the state. There is more work to be done, and I'm committed to looking for ways to support them. With that said, I turn now to a few of today's witnesses. This question is for Dr. Auguste. Doctor, thank you for being here today, and thank you for your testimony. As you know, 40% of all U.S. counties, most of them rural, lack a qualified childbirth provider. Do you believe an increase in quality maternal care providers will positively affect maternal morbidity rates, and how so?
Thank you, sir, for that question. Simply put, yes, definitely. I think this is an issue in our rural areas where there is a lack of providers, both physicians, midwives, and I think that there has to be efforts to increase that. Things like the National Health Service Corps that will aid in providing and putting and placing providers in those rural areas are critical here. Utilizing some of the tools for some of these providers that are there, that are the only providers for hundreds of miles, giving them the tools that they need, things from AIM, different bundles, utilizing your perinatal quality collaboratives to make sure that they have the resources that are there. So those providers in the rural areas, I think, will be critical. If we provide the resources and a streamline for increased providers in those rural areas, we should be able to see an improvement in maternal mortality.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I appreciate your answer.